been a pretty big week in the production of Superman. Earlier this week, we started to get peeks into what James Gunn had in store for Cleveland, Ohio, his city of Metropolis. Not only did we have a lot of looks at the new Daily Planet, which looks great, plus some huge clues into what kind of Superman we're going to be getting in this movie, as well as James Gunn doing some awesome world building with locations and very, very specific bits of DC lore. Plus, we might even have the villain, the Swamp Thing. So we got a lot to dive into. Now before we do that though, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and ring the bell for all the updates. We do daily Marvel and DC videos and want to be your place for all the superhero news, but we're going to bring it to you truthfully and transparently so you are in the know. Well, over the course of the last week, there has been a lot of Superman news that's come our way. It's coming at us so fast, I decided to build up a bit of a collection before we started to dive in, so we have a good bit to talk about. Now, we're going to dive into some of these set pictures of the Daily Planet, which looks absolutely phenomenal, some of the Daily Planet newspaper clippings, which really give us an idea of who this Superman is going to be, and some really, really interesting world building that James Gunn is doing, because he's clearly pulling out all the stops and might have even given us the villain for Swamp Thing. Let's start out with the Daily Planet. Now, the Daily Planet is probably one of the most iconic locations in DC Comics, and it looks like James Gunn and team have really nailed this one down. Now, they've been converting several locations in Cleveland, Ohio, and they have been recreating the classic Daily Planet. Now, throughout the week, we've gotten all kinds of looks at not only the building, which I have to say is absolutely beautiful, but the iconic Daily Planet globe, which was being placed at the front of the building, as well as other various Daily Planet banners and newspaper articles scattered throughout the week. Now, overall, everything about the planet looks absolutely ripped directly from the comics, and layered on with the great cast he has lined up to be this new Daily Planet, you can totally see how important this is going to be to the new Superman movie. Honestly, I have no complaints about what I've seen from the planet so far, and it only gives me more faith Gunn knows exactly what he's doing. Now, with all these peeks at the Daily Planet, we started getting looks at newspapers, and although the pictures in the newspapers were fairly fuzzy, they clearly dictate the new kind of Superman. Now, in two different articles, we see one where Superman stops a runaway train, which is absolutely reminiscent of classic Superman comics. We also saw another article where Superman saves 20 people from a collapsing building, with nobody injured. So this clearly is going to be an extension of that Superman we got from the Christopher Reeve movies that spends a lot of his time helping the little guy, saving cats, and stopping common criminals. That scene in the original Superman movie when he takes up his powers, helps the guy who can't find an elevator, and stops the bank robbers set the tone for that whole movie, and it seems to me Gunn is definitely leaning into all of those details. Now, whether these scenes actually happen on screen or are only referenced in those newspaper articles, that we don't know yet, but it is at least pretty clear what kind of Superman Gunn is building. Now, some of the other cool stuff Gunn has been doing has been world building, because if you're a fan of the MCU, you know how important world building is, and James Gunn has a lot of lessons to pull from. Now, obviously, getting Metropolis and the Daily Planet right is super important, but then there's the minor little details that flesh out the world, and we've seen a couple of those already take place. We actually got a peek at Meteors, which is a sports bar not far from the Daily Planet and a place many members of the bullpen there hang out, talk, and I'm sure is going to be one of the locations we spend a good bit of time at in the movie. We also got a peek at Jitter's Coffee, which if you're a fan of the DC Universe, you should be very familiar with. It's almost as popular as Big Belly Burger, and most interestingly, the Wounded Duck, which if you're a Batman fan, you know is a big place for the Tim Drake character and an awesome Easter egg for comic fans. One other place Gunn did slip in a couple of Easter eggs that we saw for world building was in those newspaper articles. Now obviously Superman being front and center, that was pretty big, but if you dig into some of those articles and look in the corners, there's some more interesting details. Now under Inside This Edition, there's two DC references. The first one is Chacos seeks factory workers, and if you're a DC Comics fan, you know exactly who Chacos are. Chacos are DC Comics' version of Oreo cookies, and they are a favorite snack of the one and only Martian Manhunter. So this is a great little nod to the character, and possibly something that's going to show up in the future, because I'm pretty sure if James Gunn does the Martian Manhunter, we're going to have Chacos. Now, the second one was more interesting, and that read, Lex Luthor wins Arcane Genius Award. Now, I'm unsure what Lex Luthor won that award for, but it's definitely referencing Anton Arcane. And since we have a Swamp Thing movie coming up, we should be paying pretty close attention to this one. Anton Arcane is a major supervillain who made his first appearance in Swamp Thing #2 back in 1973 and was created by the legendary Swamp Thing creator Len Wein. He is considered the arch enemy of the Swamp Thing in the comics, and this is pretty much a huge reveal because it seems like almost guaranteed he will be the primary villain in the upcoming Swamp Thing movie. In the comics, he creates these monstrous creatures called Unmen, and even resurrects his deceased brother Gregory as the villain known as the Patchwork Man. He is a skilled magician and scientist, and a character most people are completely unfamiliar with, and will be pretty awesome to see him brought to life in the upcoming movie, and probably the biggest Easter egg of the week. Now, obviously, we're going to cover everything Superman going forward. I'm going to try not to do small individual videos. We'll try to do big crops like this one. There is a lot going on with this movie. I feel like the tone and setting are becoming near perfect, and we are absolutely getting that hero version of Superman set in a very robust DC universe. I can't wait to see more.